Welcome
to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
It's time to wake up
and shine on.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Bring Me to Life podcast. Today is going to be an exciting episode. We are talking about the elements, and when I say we, I mean myself, Selomon, and my lovely partner, Shannon Shine.
What's up, humans? Thanks for waking up and shining on with us. We're starting a new month, which means a new theme, and like Silo said, it's the elements, and I'm really excited about this one because I'm going to give you the spiritual, angel witchy side, and Silo, I think, is going to give you the sciencey side. So you're going to get the different perspectives here, so stay tuned for both.
Yes, we are going to take the time to do an episode for each element, and this element we are starting with water. So before we do get into that, like Shannon said, I want to give a little background about the elements. Like where do they come from? Who first started talking about the four main elements? Things like that. So for anybody who is kind of new to this information, we actually have 118 elements that are on the periodic table. So scientifically, 118 elements. And actually in 2016, 4 more elements were added to that table. Now, of these elements, 98 of them are actually natural. They occur naturally. And then the rest of them happen in a nuclear accelerator. They happen in places like laboratories. So these elements, all 118 of them, they're created through certain number of protons and compounds. And this happens through, kind of gravity, where they all come together and start to create something. Now, the first elements that were created, they say after the Big Bang, after things began, the first few elements were actually helium and hydrogen and lithium. And hydrogen is definitely one of the first elements. And it's in a lot of things, including water, which is why we're talking about this. So it's very interesting information when you think about that. Like, there are definitely more than 4 elements, but the main 4 elements are created in these 118 elements scientifically. So water is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And that's what creates the water. So each element, there are 4 main elements that we're going to talk about on our podcast. But each one has different elements. So where did the 4 elements come from? That is interesting information because we hear a lot about the 4 elements. It's in a lot of pop culture. It's in a lot of the spiritual community. It's a main premise of the Avatar Last Airbender cartoon I love to bring up. And they actually came from... This is kind of interesting name to say. I practiced before the podcast, but Empedocles was his name. Okay,
I feel like you thought way too much about that. Yeah, you said it so clearly right before.
Empedocles.
Yeah, it's just
Empedocles. So thank you, Shannon, for the support. He was an ancient Greek philosopher, and he was the one who first proposed the idea of the 4 elements. Aristotle was also one who adopted the teachings and taught them, but he also included a fifth element. Do you know what the 5th element is?
Spirit? Or like metal?
It's ether.
Okay, so yeah, we use that in the chakra lessons that I teach. The ether is kind of like the 3rd eye chakra.
Mm-hmm. So Aristotle was one who kind of created that 5th element, the ether, because of all the mysterious energy of the planets and all that stuff. The ancient Greeks were very into astrology, and they created a lot of stories around that. So Aristotle created and coined the fifth element, the aether, and so that's kind of where we get the four elements. We have a lot of Greek culture that is in our society now, in the Western society all over the world. Like, they're a big part of the global consciousness, the collective consciousness. And so we're talking about water today. Water is a beautiful element. I'm actually a water sign, as Scorpio. I love water. I love being in water. I love swimming underneath water, though I am scared of the big deep ocean for certain reasons. But I know you love water too, Shannon, and I'd love to get your take, your more like spiritual kind of witchy vibe take on the element of water.
Yeah, I definitely love water. I'm typically a fire sign. I actually had someone recently do my chart, and they said I was more earth than anything, which I found super interesting because getting grounded is one of my harder aspects of things to do. Anyway, so water. Water is the energy of flow. It's this concept of endless possibility, and it's almost impossible, for water to find direction in itself if it has no contact with something else, but especially fire. So fire and water, they have that balance. And the element of fire, it burns as like a guiding light and gives a person energy and passion and direction, where their talents can be found and used in different forms of creation. Where water is more of a standing alone energy. It simply carries us from one side to another, one place to another, where anything from like left to right or front to back, it's got like this sense of flow in all direction of endless energy. So when we float in water, we give ourselves up to opportunity or possibility of going in any direction. And we could simply, be spinning in circles without ever really, coming out of it. If that's why the ocean can be so scary. But I do love water. I have a fear of, being lost in the middle of sea. That probably comes from some past life. But water in general is such a powerful element. And being a fire sign, I feel like I work with it more than any other element, because when I need to cool myself down, water is the way to go. I'm somebody who's also very typically hot-blooded or hot-temperatured, and I am so, so grateful to be in a day and age and a space where I have access to water, even if it's bodies of water, to like cleanse myself in and to allow myself to be blessed by the feeling of being submerged in water. I feel like there's nothing like it, both in a good and terrifying way. But I love being able to swim and to just feel my body floating is such a unique and powerful healing experience. I know when I was going through one of my darker health situations, all I could think about was wanting to be submerged in water. And that was like so healing. And I remember I went down to the creek near my home. I manifested a large tub. I wanted to go swimming. I wanted to be near the ocean. I think we went up to Lake Michigan, and it was just like any way I could be surrounded by the water element was super healing. And that comes from this concept of being able to, again, be cleansed from water and to be able to be blessed by water. That's why in different religions, people would baptize themselves with water. They would take communities out and witness each other, honor and be a part of the water element ceremony. So water just has many different ways to interact with it. I have a few different other rituals and ways you can honor the water element, but is there any ways that you specifically work with the watermelon? I know you talked the science-y portion, but I'd like to know if, as a water sign, how do you enjoy water?
Yeah. Well, I enjoy water in many ways. I do enjoy water bending, where I kind of guide my hand along the water, and you can create little curves and different ways of moving the water. So that's like a really nice meditation that I do when I'm able to kind of just be surrounded by a big body of water, like Michigan. And well, I know you said you don't want to hear the sciencey, but you said something about floating, like you enjoy floating.
I didn't say I didn't want to hear the science.
Well, either way, do you know why things float on water?
No, tell me. I definitely want to hear the sciencey. I like combining science and spiritual connections.
Yeah. And so the reason why people and things and objects float on water, and why you also can see droplets on water, and you might watch them as separate droplets, but when they come together, then it like absorbs together and becomes just one bigger droplet. And that's because the properties of water, hydrogen and oxygen, the two hydrogens are a positive charge, and the oxygen is a negative charge. So what it creates is this little, charge. It creates a little charge so that each water molecule sticks together. They're like basically like little magnets. Every drop of water is a little magnet, and that's why they stick together, and that's why things are able to float on top of them.
But do you know why some things float and some things don't, even if they're the same weight?
Buoyancy?
Sorry, I did the thing where I start asking questions. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it.
So what's a buoyancy about? Why does something float if it's the same weight?
I was asking you to tell me.
Okay.
I was just thinking about how, like sometimes there might be a raft or something and it's like the same weight as, I don't know, a certain kind of log on its own. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, because the smaller logs are all put together in like a raft formation, it floats, versus one big heavy log will just kind of sink and just be stuck in the water.
Yeah. I think it maybe has something to do with like the inside. Like a rock is very heavy all the way around, but a tree is heavy, but the inside of it is very, there's not a lot.
It's just the distribution of the weight. I see. Totally. Cool.
Yeah. So, I also enjoy working with water to do ceremonies and blessings. Charging your water is a very powerful thing to do. Water actually has a memory to it. Water is very smart and it remembers things. And science has proven that we, with our thoughts and feelings, have the ability to affect the crystalline structure of the water. Like we can actually affect the way that the structure of the water is by our thoughts and our words.
I think the guy who did that practice, his name was like Moto or something.
Yeah, Dr. Emoto.
Yeah, he did the practice where the different types of music made certain sound frequencies that froze the water, or like different words would freeze the water in different ways. And then there's the science project where you play certain music for the water, for the plant, and it like will change how the plant grows. But that's also why blessing water is so important for things like different ceremonies you do. And there's some people who do sound healings. I remember the first time I went to a crystal singing bowl sound experience, and they had moon water that they had put inside the crystal bowls and then played the bowls for us. And then we all went into a ceremonial circle and drank water from the bowl that had been blessed. And it had like when I drank it, I felt almost like the ringing was still in my ears. Like it just had such a different vibration, and it felt so clean, even though it was like in this big crystal bowl. And things like that can be super powerful. And gathering the water during the moon, like we've been gathering spring water, and it just happened to be that like the amount of jugs that we have gets us from the full moon to the new moon, and we always collect water around the moon time. It's a pretty cool practice.
It is cool practice. It's also cool because of how the moon affects the water and the tides, and very interesting. So being able to collect water during that moon time is interesting.
Well, water in that moon time affects our bodies as humans, especially those with wombs that go through a womb cycle, because the moon will often align with a womb cycle because of the amount of water and such that are in the body. So there's different ways that our bodies will react to different cycles in the moon and water. There's a couple other things that water is connected to too. Did you know that there is a lot of water in the tarot, and that there's a whole there's a lot of water in the minor arcana, but because there's like I think it's the cups actually. Probably should have looked it up before I started babbling about it. I thought I had the information. But I believe it's the cups because it can hold water. Mm-hmm. And then the swords, I believe, are fire. The pentacles, I believe, are earth. And then the wands, I believe, are air. I'll probably clarify that on a different episode. But I believe that would make the most sense. So the whole... the cups in tarot represent the element of water, and then there's certain major arcanas like the Empress and the High Priestess both feature bits of water in their imagery. So there's a lot of this go with the flow type energy in tarot that comes from water, because water is the element of emotion and empathic abilities and visions and the ability to, you know, be in flow with divination. It's also connected to the sacral chakra. I always like to think it's the solar plexus, because I would envision the sacral chakra being fire because of sensuality and all of that. Mm-hmm. But typically in most things I've researched, they say that the sacral is actually the water chakra. So I've always kind of found that interesting as well. And then there's also water. You already mentioned water in astrology, the different water signs, and you are a Scorpio. Mm-hmm. So there's Scorpio, and then let's see, what other ones are there? There's Scorpio, there's Cancer, and why can't I think of the other one? Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces. I'm a Pisces rising, so that makes sense. So the signs that belong to the element of water are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And they have a tendency sometimes to be more in tune with their body in different ways, or they choose to be, or they wish to be more in tune with their body. And they often embrace emotion. And so like Scorpios, you guys are known for being a little bit more mysterious but emotional, and Cancers are kind of known for being a little bit more stubborn with like a harder shell, but emotional. And then Pisces are like these wild card energies that are just like emotional, and sometimes they have like a harder shell, and sometimes they're like super mysterious and they just go with the flow. So there's a lot of different energy that goes into the water element of astrology. And they also have a tendency to harness emotion pretty powerfully. Like imagine when a dam breaks or something like that. When a water sign has a lot of intense emotion, it's very, very powerful. Like a big burst of water.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Like I'm not like super in my emotions all of the time, but there are definitely times where it builds up and then it explodes. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've tried to get better at like letting it flow, but you know, sometimes I like not having any emotions and like just like existing without having to have emotions or anything like that. It sounds like a weird concept, but sometimes I kind of just experience that. But I feel like I am an emotional person, and I feel emotions, and sometimes I feel like I can carry other emotions and like build on them.
I mean, I can see that. Yeah, water signs, they're very intuitive, they're very sensitive, and they feel more intensely than the rest. So like you not just channel like anger or frustration, like a flowing water, like a fountain, like a consistent flow is a beautiful thing, like consistent flow of emotions. And like, you know, bodies of water can be very beautiful. They don't have to be intense. Like a river can be both flowing and majestic, and also like fierce and powerful. And that's kind of how the energy of water is. And water sign people, you know, they don't always have to be intense. Yeah. So water's got a very dreamy energy to it. I love working with water when I'm playing my drum. Like I love being near the element of water when I'm doing my rav drum work, because I feel like, you know, I don't always play to the beat of like a metronome or a typical rhythm. The background essence of the water element is very free flowing but grounding, and still has its own kind of unique metronome to it as well.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. So where are some of your favorite bodies of water that you've visited, and some that you've played your drum at?
Ooh, well, I really love Lake Michigan. It's become one of my favorite waters to visit. I've actually seen, I think, 2 or 3 of the Great Lakes now, which has been pretty cool. I have a mission to see all of them. I'd like to visit all of the oceans. I've mainly been to the oceans around Maryland and New Jersey, I believe. I went to Chinky.
Is there 2 oceans there?
No, it's the same ocean. Same ocean, different beaches.
Same ocean, different motion.
Yep. I went to Chincoteague and Assateague Island once when I was a child, and the water there was super calming, and I often think of it now as an adult, so I'd like to visit that again. I have not played my drum there. But I'm actually really blessed. We live within like a 5-minute walk from running water, and though it's not very deep and it's not really like super swimmable, it's enough to cleanse your body in and to visit each day. And just being able to like visit waterside and play my drum has been super healing.
It's nice.
I get almost all the elements but fire, because usually there's a breeze, usually I have water, and then I'm sitting on the ground. So I need to start finding a way to incorporate more fire. I guess I'm the fire when I drum. But I really love being near water.
Water is such an important thing. It is essential to all of life. And we are so very grateful for the element of water.
Totally. Yeah.
I'd say one of my places I'm curious about is the Glacier Lakes. I think in New York or near New York.
I'd like to visit some hot springs. I've seen a lot of my friends have visited a lot of cool hot springs. For my birthday a couple years ago, during that same time I was having my health issue, we went to Berkeley Springs, which is pretty close to where we're at here in the Appalachians, and they have a little hot spring. I guess it's kind of a hot spring. Anyway, we like dunked our bodies in it, and it was super just healing, and we grabbed a little rock at the bottom, and it was a super memorable moment. So I'd like to do more of that. I think that was
George Washington. They called it George Washington's bathtub, but it was actually like a natural...
Yeah. Yep.
Little pool.
George Washington's bathtub. I mean, it was next to a little hot spring thing too. Yeah. But yeah, stuff like that would be super awesome. I have a friend that's been to Alaska and gotten to those hot springs, and he's got some crazy pictures where like it's so cold and so hot at the same time. As soon as you get out, like your whole everything freezes. It's just like dripping ice. It's a crazy looking picture.
That'd be so funny to experience.
Yeah, I wanna do all the things and visit all the places. But cool. Well, I feel like we've talked a good bit about different water experiences. I know I also work with water when I cleanse certain crystals. If I can't be near water, there's a couple different stones. There's river jasper I like to use. Apatite is like a blue stone that has a very calming energy, like the water element. When I'm making crystal grids, if I want to include the water element and I don't want to put a bowl of water on my altar, I'll use apatite or aquamarine to kind of channel that calming water energy. And kyanite, or I'm trying to think, blue calcite, are some more, I guess blue ice agate and kyanite are some more like fiercey, powerful watery type energies. So that's probably all the ways I really work with water that I can think of right in the now. If I can come up with any more, I'll add them to the Bring Me to Life community. And I would love to also hear how you work with water. You can join us in the Bring Me to Life community on Facebook and leave us a comment. If you have a water prayer that you enjoy, or any sort of sciencey things about water. Celia likes to check out the science, and I do too. Throw that in the Bring Me to Life community on Facebook, and we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, we really appreciate the interaction and getting to know our audience, like who is out there listening. We want to get to know you, just because getting to know our audience, getting to know what everybody is into, what everybody would like to hear, what all is going on in your world. It's something that we appreciate.
Totally.
Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Until our next element, stay awake.
And shine on always.
For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of it, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
Thanks for shining on with us.